Hello again, everyone. It's me, Jabbar Ghanem, with more about the story of Noah. So today I'm going to continue with chapter 9 of Noah, which starts with Noah and his family getting out of the Tabah, out of the ark, out of that coffin that they were in. They've come to a new life. The earth is renewed, and they just let the animals out. And the Lord starts a new covenant with Noah this time. It's called the Noahic covenant, and I'm going to do a special video about covenants. Remember, we talked several times about covenants, the word berit, which means to cut a covenant with people, and there is more about this here. But here is the new Noahic covenant. God gives Noah a commandment, Noah and his posterity, which is all of us, to multiply, replenish the earth, makes humans masters over everything in the earth, including the animals, and at the same time gives commandments regarding the prohibiting the shedding of blood and prohibiting the consumption of blood, because blood is the source of life. So there is more I can say about that, but it is too technical and complicated for this. So I'm gonna skip on it. It's in verse 5. But there is this new berit, this new covenant with Noah and his people, and who are all of us. They are in a place called Ararat, which is an Akkadian word, been translated into Armenia, which is eastern parts of Turkey. Nobody knows really where it is, but the word Ararat in Akkadian is thought to be mountains, and it is a very mountainous area over there. So, a part of the new covenant, that the earth will never be destroyed, the inhabitants of the earth will never be destroyed again. And so the Lord gives a sign of this covenant, and this is something I want us to notice as we study the Old Testament, as we study the Tanakh, that there is always a sign of the covenant. And in this case, the sign is a seven color bow, or bow. I'm sorry, bow. And it is what we call a rainbow, and it has seven colors. We know that number seven is significant. It's a sacred number, and in the Talmud, in the Jewish Talmud, they teach that these seven colors represent the seven commandments for the descendants of Noah. It's a sign of these seven commandments, and I'm going to read them here, which is: the first commandment is to establish courts of justice. The second commandment is to refrain from blaspheming God. The third commandment is to refrain from idolatry. And the fourth commandment is to refrain from sexual perversion, and then to refrain from bloodshed, to refrain from robbery, and to refrain from eating meat cut from living animals. And according to the Talmudic tradition, these are the seven commandments to, or of, the descendants of Noah, who is all the human race. And according to the Jewish teachers, Gentiles who meet these are approved by God. So this is sort of their way of saying, we Jews have a special relationship with God, but all the human race can have a special relation with God by just refraining from these things. So it's more of a universalist kind of approach to Judaism, which I really like. But the seven colors in the rainbow hangs there in the air. It's cutting again. It's separating. It's separating. And I talked in the previous video about this act of cutting and separating. You will see it every time there is a covenant or the covenant people doing something. There is always this cutting or separating of things, which is whether it is the waters of the Sea of Reeds, or the Abraham cutting animals and walking between them, or there's a cutting going on. So It also reminds me, these colors in the rainbow reminds me of this Middle Eastern tradition of flags. Flags in the Middle East are signs of things. Like Arab flags, they all share the same colors. They arrange them differently, but they share the same colors because they refer to an Arab credo about honor and war and, honoring people and stuff like that. So this is sort of a little tangent, but all of the all of the human descendants of Noah come from the three sons of Noah. The three sons of Noah being Sam or Shem. His name means name, which is a reference to his name being great or being famous. Then his son Japheth, which is derived from the root fatah, or in Arabic we say to open or an opening. It's a reference to living in large lands or having access to open lands. And then there is Ham, and his name can mean two things, can mean father-in-law or can mean noisy. And he will figure in largely in a story, in the next story that I'm going to talk about in a minute here. But he's also referred to as the father of Canaan several times. You'll see that coming in several times. He's referred to as the father of Canaan. There is a reason for that. Now, the next story, they are out of the Teba. They, of course, start planting things. Noah becomes a farmer, and he's planting. I can't imagine at his age being a farmer, but he's farming. He's working in the land, and of course he plants grapes, and from the harvest of the grapes he makes wine. And of course there is this episode where he gets too happy, gets naked, and in his tent. Now in the Middle East to this day there is this thing about nakedness, about nudity, about revealing parts of your body. And I'm not talking just about complete nudity, I'm talking about even revealing parts of your body, wearing shorts, for example. In Arabic, there is this word that I always found entertaining and amusing. It's called awra or sawa. And Rob Gawan, in his translation of the Torah in Arabic, the one I keep referring you to, or referring to, it describes it as such. Sawa or awra in Arabic means a bad thing, or it means sort of like a bad, shameful thing that shouldn't be shown, and that includes genitals. So the genitals are called sawa or awra. Now that's important for this story, because there is a lot of speculation about what happened. Noah is drunk. His son Ham hears the noise, and I find it interesting, this correlation between his name and what happened. And he goes in and he sees his father's sawa. He sees his father's nakedness. Seeing someone's nakedness in Hebrew and Arabic is a complicated phrase or turn of phrase, because it can mean that you've seen someone's genitals directly, or it can mean seeing someone's wife or having sex with someone's wife. So that is where interpretation and the people who interpreted this event go wild. What did Ham do that was so bad? Because we know that when Sam and Japheth come in to their father's rescue, they cover him, they walk in backwards, they cover him, and then he wakes up from his hangover and he curses. And here is a very important thing that I want everyone to know. He curses not Ham, but he curses Canaan. He curses Canaan, because Ham and Sam and Japheth were blessed. Everyone who survived in the ark was blessed by God. Noah can't reverse that. Canaan is the one who is cursed. Now, Canaan's name is really interesting, because In Arabic, in Semitic, the root is khana'a, khan'an. And khana'a, that root means someone who is humiliated or being under someone. We say khunu'a or dhilla. It's someone who's just so humiliated. So that's what the name means. I know that in some Hebrew lexicons and dictionaries they say it also means lowlands, but lowlands are under. They are the underlands. They are not lands of. They are of lower esteem in a sense. So Canaan is the one who is cursed, not Ham. Now, uh, over the centuries, people used this curse of Ham, and I do rarely will do this, but quote unquote, curse of Ham to justify slavery, saying that descendants of Ham, of which Canaan is one, are cursed, and we should, because the word slavery, abid, is used in this in these verses, but it's not. It's not. Nobody is sure what the curse was. The Hebrew word that Noah uses to curse Canaan is arar, and I looked it up in old Arabic, classical Arabic dictionaries, which is very, very close to biblical Hebrew. And as I said earlier, biblical Hebrew and classical Arabic, pre-Islamic Arabic or early Islamic Arabic are pretty much two dialects of the same language. So that root arar in Arabic, there is like 3-page entry in this dictionary from the 10th century called Lisan al-Arab, and they are all negative terms, but the first sense of the word is a curse, sort of like acne or some sort of skin disease. So that is what Canaan was cursed with, not cursed to slavery necessarily. He's cursed to be under his brothers. He's cursed to be sort of humble and humiliated by them. So that is what the words mean. So this is the story. Now the other part of the speculation is that Canaan, Ham, seeing the nakedness meant that he committed incest with his mother. So some say that he castrated his father. Those of you who look at interpretations and at commentaries and read them, they will surely see those, but there is nothing in the text that indicates these extreme interpretations. Most likely he just saw his father's genitals. And that reminds me, growing up, there was, and I'm sure most Middle Eastern Arab homes, you can't walk around the house naked, and naked being in your underwear. You can't show parts of your body. Like my dad, I don't think I've ever seen my dad in shorts or anything like that. That was a big taboo. You can't. And seeing your father's nakedness or seeing any of your parents naked is a huge deal that, definitely some people who read the story, who were raised in the Middle East, would sympathize and empathize with Noah's position that Canaan deserved to be cursed. Now, the sad thing about cursing Ham, remember I said Ham is called earlier in the story the father of Canaan. Now, Canaan must have been his oldest, because that's another Arab tradition, Middle Eastern tradition, of calling the dad by the name of his oldest son. So my dad's name, for example, is Abu Jabra, because I'm the oldest son. His dad's name is Abu Farid, because my dad was the oldest son. So cursing the oldest son is a bitter thing, and it must have hurt Ham more than if he himself received the curse. Remember, and we will see in the stories of Joseph, for example, when Jacob blesses Ephraim, the youngest, rather than Manasseh, Joseph is hurt. When Esau loses his blessing to Jacob, his younger brother, Isaac is hurt by that, even though he was tricked into giving the blessing to Jacob. So cursing the oldest son, cursing the son that you're known, whose name you're known by, is a bitter thing, and that's where the pain of this curse of Ham comes from. So that's all I have for now. Next, we're going to cover the story of Babylon before moving into the great story of Abraham. It's an important story, and I'll see you then. Thank you for listening.